Okay, well, welcome to another episode of Chris and Kevin Talk or Goalie Gear Chat. Yeah,
Welcome back, guys, for another week.
yeah. So what do we have today? We've got the V10 pads.
Yeah, but not the V10 blocker and catcher, not just the V10. We've got some V10 XPs.
Right. So what should we talk about first?
Initial impressions, very light blocker. And we just got off the ice. So this is built with his sweat and it's still really light.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the topic of the blocker, I think that it is a light blocker, and I think every time everyone has to pick what they think about a palm. I think this is maybe a little bigger on my hand, but it's got a familiar like looseness to it. So I was happy to just kind of put it in and just be able to play. The finger protection I see like maybe could be a little. I don't know what it is. Maybe it needs to curve more. But
I don't know if it's a bit of a curve because like on a lot of other blockers we're seeing, there's another strap coming off like the ring or the middle finger that really links it to here because you really only have it on the outside of your middle finger and your there's a lot of space here where if you're holding a stick the puck can ride up on the wrong angle. That's one thing I would kind of work is just the finger and finger protection integration and how it moves together.
I think, and really one of the things that I've come to find that I prefer is if the attachment point was on the fingertip of all blockers rather than the side, then you don't get this twisting that happens. I think that's what I would prefer. But otherwise, the palm material I thought was nice. I was able to grip my stick without having to worry about it. I thought the sidewall, I like that there's this Gen Pro piece. Sometimes people talk about it kind of catching with the stick, but I thought it was all right. This index finger piece was not too big, and so I think
Still moves. How did you find like the sidewall protection? Because I noticed there's a two-piece here along with a very healthy like thick cushion here that would really give you that extra coverage when you're sealing up on the sides.
I thought it was. I mean, it's stiffer, but it's not crazy stiff. Like I think like when I think of the stiff, it's kind of like how Bauer does it. It's really,
especially like on the mock where it's like a one piece like in the
big
brick.
mock. But I think it's it is what it is, and it's not soft. It's kind of like stiffer, but not very stiff. The cuff, it was interesting because this is a full one piece, so it's not like a half piece cuff. And so I was trying to articulate when I was playing it. I didn't find that it was too off, so I thought it was all right. It's nice and light. It's a very neutral feeling blocker. I feel like it feels very familiar. I think the looseness and how it's balanced. I enjoy it. Like I think sometimes you want things to be uncomplicated as far as a blocker goes.
Yeah, like it's a very simple. Like this really takes the saying a blocker is a blocker. I mean, it's it's got decent finger protection. Obviously, integration to be improved. You've got a good bit of index finger protection right here. It's a very comfortable sidewall where, if you are the type of person that slams it in, it's not going to jab you like those one-piece sidewalls will. There is a little bit of give with that cushion. So, you're going to be able to seal up and have pucks just sort of die on the sidewall too.
Yeah. I think one touch I've appreciated that Vaughn does is they have the quick slide material here. It's just another wear piece. That's nice. And then I think just as a very interesting thing about the XP is they have this lace side. So I just am surprised, I don't mind having lace on the side to hold things together. I just wasn't expecting that, but it does give it kind of an old school feel and look to it with the block.
For sure.
Okay, as far as the catcher, I think this was interesting. So this catcher is their XP, so it's the Velocity XP Pro Carbon. It's a custom-only glove now. So if you were to look through the Vaughn catalog, it's only V10. And so the XP is a custom glove, which allows you to try, just to have a few other options. Namely, this glove that was done by the demo by United Sport and Cycle is the 70-degree break. So
75.
70.
Oh, it's 70.
70.
Oh, really?
As far as I remember.
Okay.
Well, anyways, so I think how I would kind of show it is it actually has a shape like the 590, though with the 590, but it has a bit more of an upright sort of closure. So I find that the thumb is not very crazy high, but it just kind of is there. But it's a nice full hand curl.
Yes.
I feel with this, and it's not so much like kind of like this sometimes, and you can feel with some gloves, but I feel like it's something you can do with the full palm like that.
So for reference, this glove actually arrived into the shop over the weekend. I was there when it first came in. So you're probably the first one to wear it in game.
First one to play, yeah.
This is amazing closure out of the box. Like out of any of the other gloves we've demoed so far, during these summer skates, this is by far the most broken in. I feel
Like it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What I would say, so catching with it wasn't so bad. I didn't get a ton of shots that I caught because I got sniped a couple of times. So, but I find like I think that this 70-degree break is supposed to be something that gives a feeling towards like a 580 glove.
Yeah.
But so it has a little bit of a closure like that, but it doesn't have that crazy like fold over. But it is like it's not the same as a 590. But I feel like this is a 590 morphed to try to shape into a 580. So it has that look. This XP glove looks like a 590 shape, which really the XP Carbon, the first one that came out, was pretty much just like, oh, Vaughn made a Lefebvre glove.
Yeah.
And so I think this is kind of this downstream evolution with a different option for someone who wants to be in a Vaughn glove, but it's a bit different. So I think this is like a softened 590 to have a bit of a different catch angle for someone who might prefer that.
For sure. And I guess moving on to the biggest piece here, we've got the pads. I think with the V10 pads, this is where the biggest amount of changes have come through.
Yeah.
The biggest change I've noticed, I'm a soft goalie pad fanatic, just terrible hips. They've really stiffened up the top. Especially on the thigh up, the boot's still going to be relatively flexible. As I'm pushing from the top here, just on my own thigh, like it's only the boot that's really moving. In game, you will notice if you're leaning on a bit, there's a little bit of give and flex, but from the thigh up, it's got that extra reinforcement. And, it's still, they thinned it out a little bit, but compared to most other pads, like, the Hyperlight 2 that we've had last week, or even your Optic 2s you've got there, it's a chunky pad still. But the one big thing they've done to really get the sliding going is the inside here is a lot stiffer than it's previously been, especially on the calf plate and on the knee wing here. This calf plate is quite a bit stiffer. Another piece, like every other manufacturer is doing, is like a stiffer knee block. You can see instead of like having the entire block like go into the pad on a bracket, like you see on the Bauer Hyperlight 2s and the Mox, here you see like just a little bit, a single piece of like, I think 1/2-inch bracket just kind of integrated into the pad. It's Velcroed in both sides and not towards the back, on both sides and laced in. So it's really going to be a lot stiffer. It's not going to be the stiffest on the market, but it's a lot stiffer than what it's been in previous years. The knee landing piece is a little bit different too. You've got a little bit of a driver system right here on the wedge here where it'll push the pad in a little bit more. This is also removable via Velcro and adjustable. It really reminds me of like the older like Bauer 1100s and like the senior level reactors where you could move the knee cradle up and down.
Okay, yeah.
I actually have parts of this sitting in there. Moving on to the leg pads. The strapping is where you're going to see the biggest change with the RRC. You've gone from 2 straps, they loop right through and just circle back. But the interesting part is the attachment point. With this, you can actually have it either mounted to the outside of the pad, or if you want it tighter, you can have it on the inside. So for example, for myself, like to replicate that professor strap it towards the upper part of the calf, you can actually just remove this, put it on the inside, and just have it strapped on the inside like so. Right? So that way you're going to have that attachment point on the inside. You can just have it really tight on the inside here, just the attachment point right here, and it's going to be a lot tighter than having attached on the outside. That's an option for people that want to feel really connected to their pads. The one thing that Vaughn really does like really well is just comfortable leg channels. You can feel how plush this material is, and it's so soft, right? You're cushioned all throughout. Cushioning here, decent, like it's a nice soft landing too. It's a nice soft lux landing. You're gonna get, compared to a lot of leg channels these days, which are hollowed out, it is very, 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 very soft. Moving down into the boot, this sucker A lot of people have called it a flat boot, a tabletop boot. We beg to differ. It is like, it is not only flat, but it almost puffs out a little bit here. So it's really sitting high up on your skate, and you're really not going to get that traditional deep boot channel that you've gotten on previous velocity pads. It sits on there, and not only that, but the entire boot area is covered in the quick slide material as well. So that's really going to wear really well on you. One thing we've noticed on this production, on this demo unit, we're not sure if it's an aeronaut. There's a couple holes here for lacing. It looks like the lacing went underneath here actually instead of over. Might just be a production error, but that's one thing we really noticed. And then the toe tie, you've got a standard toe bridge, centered offset with Vaughn's elastic toe ties, which are no longer clips, they're Velcro. That's pretty much the off-the-shelf impressions of the pads. But Chris, walk us through on how they played.
Yeah, so I feel like this is a modernized chunky pad, or it's just like it's definitely like a legacy pad that is like, oh, this is what a velocity is. It has so much elements that is there, and then things are kind of like swapped in, like a stiffer like balance plate or stiffening up at the knee.
Yeah.
And so because the thing that I was noticing about this, and again, this could just be something that someone wants, is like it has a very pillowy rebound. Like the rebound, I don't know how it looked to you, but I was like, oh,
they were right there. They were
like,
just
I could feel like, and so I was like, oh, that was not how I was expecting it to come together. So I was not expecting that as a feel, and so that is obviously a feature that is like a carryover for how it was. Definitely I noticed that with the flat boot, so this is a 32 plus 2, I definitely was at the bottom edge of the knee stack and sliding off. I was like, oh, did I strap something? We're like, oh no, it's just my knee coming off of the knee, like the knee stack. So definitely was sized down for that, which I mean, I think for everyone has to really re-understand how they're going to fit, especially with the boot.
Yeah, because in a traditional, like with a deep channel, it's going to sit a lot lower, but because the boot is so puffy, it's beyond a flat boot. It's going to sit pretty high up on your skate, as mentioned. So you have to be aware that when you're buying the pads, fitting the pads, you can't just buy pads sight unseen, just because even from within manufacturers, sizing could change from generation to generation so much.
Yeah, I found that with the quick slide material, I could slide a lot. And when the play was not on my side, I was definitely just trying to move around, and I could feel that it slid well. The boot is soft, and so I was just trying to get like kind of the exits and up from coming down. And so I thought it was nice. I didn't feel like I was struggling too much with the boot as far as movement, although I don't know how it fits. And obviously there's the potential for user error that I must own up to, but I was just getting beat 5-hole a ton today. And so I know I was getting opened up, but I just feel like the seal was a bit different. I don't know whether it was just the way the thighs were or just how the strapping was. I just feel like I didn't seal as well. Obviously it could have been, it's probably my play, but man, I was just getting rocked. Where sometimes I feel like I can just kind of come down and...
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that is like the thicker pad, like just really interfering, because... So if we're going to take a look at the inside of a pad, we're just going to compare. Just see how much thicker this is. So there is a lot more to really bump up against each other. And, if you're getting down, like that could really interfere on your drop, right? When you're comparing like an Optic 2 to a V10. Obviously, there's going to be similar sliding material, and it's a function of both when you're dropping down, right? It's also going to be a little bit clunkier, and then I don't know what else to say about it, really.
Yeah, and again, I think, and I don't know whether it is the function of the thigh rise or maybe even just the strapping, because everything, the way that I had it was pretty snug, and I don't mind wearing snug pads. I mean, I've tried so many variants of the Professor strap, but it just was not sealing the way that I wanted to. So
and like just to add, sorry to cut you off there, like just strapping it on here in the locker room at the loosest setting, even like I had my knee pads and skates and pads still on, it was tight. Like it's very tight, and the one thing I'm kind of sad to see is like you don't have the adjustment on this side because like even just wearing it at the loosest setting here, I'm not sure how much you're back here. Let me actually loop it through. And this is on the outside, even on this is like the loosest you can go. And that's still not that loose for some folks. Like I know for me, I like to wear my pads really loose and this is tight.
Well, and I mean, that's the nature of a control strap, right? So I think it's intended to be that way. And there is still the big loop around the side. So again, I feel like in the past, people used to try to make velocities play a certain way by strapping it certain ways. This one gives you the options to be flexible. So it is like a pad that has picked up modern traits that allow it to have some of the features of a modern pad. Yeah, definitely a older feel, but it's not the same as what the previous lines of velocity.
Oh, definitely. Like I felt with the V9 when I picked it up and just played around with it in store, it was a lot softer.
Yeah.
You know, just being able to move even at the knee, right? Like I know they really said about like from the knee up, it was supposed to be a lot stiffer, which it definitely is, but I feel like right at the knee, it's still quite stiff. It's a lot stiffer than the V9 was even at this break here.
Yeah. So I didn't mind the stiffness. Like the way that I've come to enjoy pads is as long as there's a decent curve above the knee, then I feel like I can move as much as I can play at my skill level. So it was not interfering. I feel the ones that are very stiff and very tall up, those are the ones that feel a little weird. This one interferes with the way that I play, but this one has a little bit of a stiff at the knee and that kind of comes up, it curls a little bit. So I didn't feel like I was fighting the pads a lot. I just was probably just getting used to how to seal with it.
Yeah. I can't speak for the seal because I really didn't, but like one really weird thing I noticed when I had the the Optic 2s and this on the other leg, my hips felt weird. It was like torquing my hips a little bit.
Really?
The Vaughn, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if that really affected your seal, but I've got bad hips though, so I don't know how it torqued it really weird.
Yeah. Anyways, this is I think the first soft pad I've ever demoed. Everything else is always on the stiffer side. I don't think I've ever played in a Vaughn Velocity style pad.
Yeah. In terms of like overall soft pad, soft rebounds, I would argue that the Hyperlight 2 actually had more flex in terms of this way. The boot definitely felt more flexible on the Hyperlight 2s, in my opinion.
Really?
In terms of just flexing the pad down, because a Hyperlight 2, if I'm not mistaken, still has a double break core.
I don't remember that off the top.
It's a double break core with reinforced composite on the pad itself, so it really springs back, right? That's the one thing about more modern flexible pads is that it's going to keep its shape, right? It's not going to break down,
Right.
but when you need it to flex, when you need it to give, I actually found that the Hyperlight 2, there's way more. Even the original Hyperlight was a lot softer too than whatever I've got my hand here, because this is it's a long departure from your Vaughns of past. I feel like it still maintains the soft face, the knee rolls, the chunky side profile, very soft and comfortable leg channel, but aside from that, like the entire profile of the pad is very, 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 very different, even down to the boot too. And, I think that appeals a lot more to the modern goaltender. But in terms of older Vaughn loyalists, I almost want to say, I don't know if they'll love it or not.
This serves a very specific sub-market of goalies. So I think Vaughn has done a lot of work for it. And it's also trying to maintain a way for the V10 to be different from the SLR line. So they definitely kept things, because I played with the SLR and it's not this pad. So I think they've done things to bring the V10 more modern, but still keep some of those elements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right. Well, we want to give a big shout out to United Sport and Cycle for letting us borrow this for this video and letting us try on some demo gear as always.
Yeah, and so it's fun. We'll come back for another episode with the next time we skate.